Well, let's do this. Let's talk about the gaslighting, because we did briefly mention this, but I want to dive deeper into this story, because a lot of these Antifa people are motivated by fake news. So earlier on, we were talking about this. We have this poll. This is from Zach Goldberg. He says, a recent nationally representative survey commissioned by Skeptic Mag asked respondents to estimate the number of unarmed blacks killed by police in 2019. Overall, 44% of liberals guessed 1,000 or more, as compared to 20% of conservatives. This calculation is based on the crosstabs shared with me by the researcher. This is crazy, man. I watched a PragerU video, and it was Will Witt. I think it was Will Witt. And he's at the Venice skate park in California, and there's 3 black dudes, and he asks them, how many black people do you think were killed by cops in 2019? And one guy goes, thousands, man, thousands. And he was like, you think thousands? The other guy's like, yeah, probably thousands, maybe more. And then he was like, 19. Yep. Depending on which statistic you use. So this Skeptic Mag used the higher number of 27 because they take into account more circumstances. I think the official number of unarmed black men shot and killed is like 13. But then when you take into consideration like maybe like chokeholds and stuff like that, it goes up to about 27. 27. Each and every one of those unarmed individuals who died is a nightmarish tragedy. I don't even believe the death penalty, man. I really don't. I think if you've subdued someone, then we have to deal with like how I don't have all the answers. I just tell you this. I think if we got someone locked in a box and you're like, now we're going to kill you, I think that's insane. They're no longer a threat. You got them locked in this prison. So I'm opposed to that. So if a cop comes out and gets into a situation and someone dies, that's a nightmare scenario, because we have a constitution, we have a Bill of Rights. We're innocent until proven guilty. But I also recognize that these cops aren't going out hunting people down. But that's the narrative you're getting from the media. These young people then believe it. The craziest thing about the story, this other chart we brought up, check this out. When they asked conservatives what percentage of people killed by police were black, that conservatives said 37.8%. That's the number is actually 23%, 23.4%. 23.4% of the people who were killed by cops in 2019 were black. Even conservatives overestimated the total number by about 50%. So whatever is going on with the media that even conservatives are skeptical of, they're still buying into these narratives.
Well, it's because of visual persuasion. A very non-political way that survey was done is if you polled the American public and you said, what percentage of population you think is white, Hispanic, black, most people would say they think 1 in 4 people in America are black. And if you ask them what percentage of the population is gay, you get something from like 5 to 25%. And the answer is that, well, if you're doing a billboard and you have 4 people, you can't put 4 white people because that would be racist. So you have to put, okay, we need a woman here, we need a black here, we need a gay person here. We have all the representation, and then people see that over and over and over and over again. So that misunderstanding is the same thing with combat deaths. If you say, hey, what percentage of combat fatalities do you think are like female versus male? And they'll be like, well, like 25% are female or some high number. You're like, no.
It's like less than 1%.
Yeah. It's like way, way down the list. And that's because medium is the message, visual persuasion. Even if it's from a good point, because I believe in representation. I agree with the left in terms of representation matters. You should have positive role models of every kind of race, religion represented, because that does matter, because kids watch that, because media is so important. So if people grew up in the 80s and they watch action movies, they go to the gym. It's unconscious. Nobody's saying, hey, go look like Sylvester Stallone, but like it's there on a conscious level. So I actually believe in representation, but even when it's meant to be done in good faith, people then draw the wrong conclusions. And then when it's done in bad faith, which is what the media is doing, hands up, don't shoot, all the various hoaxes, you're terrorizing. I mean, the wild thing about it is, this is probably a weird thing that people wouldn't expect me to think, but I would say that black men are the biggest victims of the media hoaxes, because when I leave the house, I know as a lawyer, if I get pulled over, things get dodgy, you should be careful all the time. I tell people that whatever you are. But I don't think that I'm going to get hunted down by anyone. I don't think that I'm going to get hunted down by a gang of black teenagers or the police or anyone else. There's a large percent of the population. There's actually somebody who worked for the NRA, a black guy, and he would say that, or African American or POC or whatever you're allowed to say now, is he used to actually believe that white people with guns were going to hunt him down. What a terrible way to live, man.
Yeah, it's scary, man.
And that's because you've been gaslit.
Well, so the crazy thing is, when I went to Sweden, there were a lot of conservative personalities talking about the migrant crime waves and things like that. And they were showing these videos of burning cars and the most egregious stuff. And what I discovered was they were right. There was a crime wave in Sweden. The previous year, they had a total of 1 murder. The next year, it went up to like 13. For the people of the town of the city of Malma, that was nightmarish. It was like, why are all these people being killed? But for someone from Chicago, I was like, is that it? So what happens is people in the U.S. hear a story. Murders are up over 1,000%. And if you live in Chicago, your perspective is based on the Chicago murder rate of being crazy. Then you'd imagine your world, 1,000% increase in murder. You'd be imagining crazy insanity. You'd be like, I'm not going to Sweden. But you actually go there and you're like, oh, I get it. Crime is up. It's up quite a bit. This has the residents scared. But relative to where I'm from, crime is extremely and ridiculously low. So what happens is, I think there are people who were correctly pointing out the crime waves, but basing the reality situation off of their personal experience in, say, London, where there is like more crime. They then put out videos, or New York or Chicago or Baltimore, and then they make it seem, because in their worldview, it is crazy to see this massive increase in murders. For people who lived in Sweden, they were shocked by these numbers, but they're not used to it. So their fear was legitimate. When these people in Sweden would say, we're terrified to go outside, they mean it, but it's not the same thing. You know, if you're not from there, you wouldn't know.
Well, and a lot of that's in good faith, too, which is why, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I used to be, because I grew up in a small town, terrified of big cities, right? I wouldn't want to go to New York and get shot. You're going to go to Chicago to get mugged. And then I started traveling more, and then I would meet people from the city who were afraid of the country. We'd be driving down. They're like, oh, my God, country roads. Is this going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Is it going to be Deliverance all over again? So there is the otherizing where, okay, I grew up in the rural area, and actually it's incredibly dangerous in terms of driving, car accidents, a deer runs out. And I'm afraid of going to Chicago to go shopping on Miracle Mile. I'm actually safer on Miracle Mile than I am driving my car at night because some deer is not going to, run out of the road. So that's not even malicious. But then with the media, because there's all these cognitive biases, the availability bias, so the last thing you hear is what you think happens all the time. So, for example, there was that famous case where the airline pilot, I think Captain Sullivan or Sully, landed in water. And then after he landed in water, oh my God, an emergency. We have to now have water life jackets in every kind of plane. You're like, right. That happened one time in 10 years, dude.
Yeah.
But if you're the guy who says that happened one time in 10 years, it is what it is. Now you're going to be massacred by the media. Oh, you don't care if kids drown in a pool. So that's always going to happen too. And it happens to us even when you're trying to act in good faith and to tell the truth.
I worked at O'Hare Airport, and they hired a safety coordinator guy. So they have the bag room where the conveyor belt brings all of your luggage when you drop it off. And so I guess one day, this is what I was told. I don't know if it's true, but this is what I was told. Somebody had something on their boot and slipped. And so the next day I come in, and they've glued this grit down to the floor, all across the floor. And it made it a lot harder to drive across because it was super grippy material. And it was really funny to like walk over. It was like they took like sandpaper glued to the floor. And I was like, so like one guy trips and that's their response. Well, they don't want to be sued.
Yep.
So if one guy got hurt, the next time someone gets hurt, they're going to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars. They're like, spend a couple $100 and glue the sandpaper to the floor. So it was an overreaction, but it's also, I guess, just we have this system built in place where nobody wants to assume any risks. Nobody wants to recognize that sometimes accidents happen, but also some people exploit that accident for personal gain.
Well, you don't want to be an adult. That's where, one of the things, I don't like how Trump handled coronavirus. I'm not here to defend that, but like one thing he said was, hey man, like people die, it is what it is. And the answer is yes. I mean, a lot of people are going to die this year. They're going to die of different things. There are trade-offs. You can't just be like every death is a tragedy. I mean, it is to me. If I die, it's a tragedy to my family or friends or whatever. But if you're in a leadership position, the answer is like, yeah, I mean, people die, dude. Like, what are you going to do? You stop the world? You shut everything down because people are going to die. Yep. But then if you say that, now you're a monster. Oh, this person doesn't care about anyone. He's killing grandma.
That's the scary reality of what's going on, is that everything has to be perfect all the time. Like I see these tweets from AOC, and she, there was like some lefty who said, what did they say? No one should ever have to live in poverty.
Right.
And it was like someone responded, there's a viral tweet, a person who was working full time should not be living in poverty. And they responded with a snapback, no one should be living in poverty. Poverty is relative. Poverty 100 years ago was like people sleeping in a mud pit. And Rockefeller had garbage dental care. Yep. Now, poor people in this country are overweight. and have air conditioning and refrigerators and TVs. Look, I'm not saying life is great for them. I would like to see them live better. I would like to see the standard go up, but the standard is going up. If no one can ever live in poverty, well, I don't know what to tell you, man, because it's relative.
Well, and Luke's been around, like I thought I grew up poor, and like I got the creds to say I grew up poor, and then I went to Cambodia, and I was like, all right, dude, you had a yard, bro. You had a yard.
Yeah.
You didn't really grow up poor.
Yeah, I mean, traveling to places like Philippines and Africa and Somalia, it really gives you a lot of different perspectives.
But you were also born in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, well,
or
born in Poland.
Right.
Yeah, but again, what's happening here? It's everything's becoming so political. Everything's becoming this kind of emotional, manipulative mind control, and it's being played over and over again just to make sure that we are convinced that something is happening. When we look at the way that the media has been acting, they've been acting very, very intelligently when it comes to their propaganda. There's a reason they repeated the George Floyd murder tape over and over and over again. And when we talk about, that particular event, whether you have questions about it or not, it brought up a lot of emotions for a lot of people that a lot of people capitalized on for their own personal political benefit. Whether it was true or not, it didn't matter. People saw it and got to see it all the time. When it comes to other people, let's just say, Ashley Babbitt getting killed, you don't see that footage on CNN for a particular reason. This is why the Vietnam War...
Wait, it was on CNN. They paid the guy, the lefty activist,
exactly.
30 grand
But as far as like if you compare the footage to George Floyd, I think there's a big disparity as far as how much it's played, how it's played, and the coverage behind it, the music behind it, the zooming in on it, the face of a man dying in front of you is traumatic. But we have to understand these are selectively chosen to have a bigger agenda out there. When you brought up, COVID, if we treated obesity like COVID, cancer like COVID, the opioid epidemic like COVID, especially with the number of deaths, with the number of people's affected by that, my goodness, we would never get out of the door ever. But COVID is something else that's being treated in its own special, unique way. But obesity, depression, child suicide rates, all of those issues that are effective of the lockdowns, we can't even talk about it.
300,000 people die per year from obesity.
Yep.
We've got to lock everything down.
Yep.
We got to shut it all down. It's 300,000 people
Diabetes.
who died.
I mean, if you factor diabetes and heart disease in that, probably more. I mean, if you look at it like lifestyle, what are the top 10 most prescribed pharmaceuticals? 8 out of 10 are lifestyle.
Yeah. One of the most
Blow
incredulous things that I saw was a Pepsi advertisement saying that your next COVID test is going to be at Walmart. I mean, how ridiculous could there was a Pepsi advertisement that said get your COVID test now at Walmart. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Especially when you look at the scientific studies. There's a meme I tweeted of this like morbidly obese guy with all of the KFC and all this fast food, and the byline says, Americans be like, you have no right to go outside and endanger my health. There's no real conversations about health. There's no real conversations about stress, sleep, meditation, fasting, supplements, making sure you get enough exercise. There's no conversations about that, but there is conversations about restricting your freedoms, taking away your liberties, taking away your money, taking away your livelihood, taking away your existence for the benefit of the state. And it's ridiculous, and it's sick, and it's two-faced, and it needs to be called out more than ever.
Yeah. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.